Darren, cool. I had to get the little screen set up for us. Darin Gaub from Restore Liberty. Always great to have you here. You are our first guest here on Thursday, and we're delighted that you're here on the broadcast, Darin. And I see you didn't just this week. You just went casual. You just said, screw that guy, man. I don't know what that.
I've had a few people tell me that I was inappropriately dressed for my normal public appearances and go back to what I usually wear.
That's funny
I was like,
stuff.
okay.
All right, Darren, great man. I know you'll be coming to town here tonight. I wish you certainly to travel safely. But what do you got going on? You got the 12 minutes, of course. You got the 12-minute slot. Over to you. Bring it, brother.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim. Yeah. What's been interesting is that despite Restore Liberty's efforts on the political arena with school boards and sheriffs and things like that, I've been asked to come to some places around the country, actually to speak to pastor groups at church settings and talk about how they can get out, I guess, from outside their walls and not only be the light of the world from a faith perspective, which is our number one priority, but the fact that in America, one of the unique settings of the church is we're supposed to be one of the, if not the primary influence on our culture nationwide. And we've really kind of given that up with hiding behind the walls of nonprofit rules and regulations, which give us more leeway than we think. And maybe the simple decision would be to not be a nonprofit anymore and then just go out there and be a church regardless. So that's been interesting as that's grown. The other thing is that we're when we're doing that, we're talking about how to rebuild communities at the local level, which as you build that foundation on up, as we've talked about in the past, that's one of our organizational goals is to talk local politics and foundations. But how do you do that when the tendrils of the federal government reach all the way down into almost to how you can raise your own children in your own home? And so there's ways to do that through alternative economies and support structures and things like that I'm providing a structure to, and then if it's useful, people will take that and run with it. And I'll be talking about that a little bit tonight. The other piece tied to that is, despite the fact that all that stuff is local work, I'm working with a global coalition, multiple people from Australia, New Zealand, throughout Europe, here in North America, and now we're cracking open a little bit into South America, some too, and bringing together not only people interested in these alternative economies and the support structures they bring, but I'm specifically working with bringing together veterans and people that are still in uniform in different countries too, and we're going to provide a really kind of a situation update from each country in a simple newsletter format that's not too busy or too great to read. And someone from New Zealand can talk about what's happening in New Zealand to the people in America by just sharing this newsletter across different countries and saying, here's what's going on. And it's only, 3 or 4 paragraphs at the most per country, and then a global situation update. And so we're working on that as well. We got to use every outlet we can get to get the truth out, because in every other outlet right now, the big ones are trying to avoid getting the truth out in every way they can.
If I can make just a suggestion for you, and this will you'll be able to read this back, listen to this back when you replay the video. But there was a publication, I think James Corbett took it over. It was called The International Forecaster with Bob Chapman. Bob has since passed away. I had the great pleasure of speaking to Bob on the phone many times. He was hard to get a hold of because he was like in a secret location. At any rate, he did a similar type of a newsletter that had different countries outline with just brief paragraphs about them, and it was wildly successful. I mean, I think that I had a communications expert on here on a podcast that I was doing, and he says when things go bad and when there's a grid down situation, people are just as hungry for information as they are for food. And it really kind of dawned on me that is really, I think, because that's life or death. I mean, you can go a little bit of time without food, but you don't get the proper information in the proper amount of time. It could go south on you. Anyway, I think that communications is key. Darin, is that something that you would agree with in sort of a grid down or a community building situation?
Oh, absolutely. And if you're not thinking about that, and something does happen, and it doesn't matter what causes it, whether it's a natural occurrence or something else, that that grid down situation is actually something with communications where you could save someone's life, yours or somebody else's. It doesn't matter who it is. And it's simple loss of internet. It could be anything, but ham radios, whatever it takes. There's so many things out there these days to get that kind of stuff done. I think communications is absolutely number one. And after that, we can work on a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it, people, if you haven't taken a look at, I've been to the website. I haven't taken the course yet, but I understand it's not, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to get your ham radio license. I'm told that I've been encouraged many times to do that before they close that door, maybe perhaps at some point. So I would encourage everyone, and there's a website out there. It's really easy to find information about it and take the test. But I think that's key anyway. As many people that can be ham radio operators, I think the better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And, the other thing that's going on here, of course, is as we get closer and closer to the midterms, we're keeping an eye on a number of things that could cause the October surprise, whether it's here or overseas. We're watching a lot of different things with Russia very closely. Some of their special trains, I guess you could say, are moving. They've had one key submarine we're hoping someone's tracking it, but it's disappeared.
It's vanished.
Space up near the Arctic to go south. Yeah. And these are sources I'm getting directly from inside Russia telling us about some of these things, so I can bypass, like I said, that information cycle that, they're trying to hide things and get to the actual truth of things. Now, their motivations and what they're going to do with it remains to be seen, if they're going to do anything. But all of these things are a global concern that will impact locally if something happens that's bad. And we're not in control of that, but we can control the actions that we can take here. And so we're watching that, and who knows what the purpose of that would be from Russia's perspective, Ukraine, NATO, all the way down to trying to create a distraction here in the States for all of these elections coming up in the midterm. And we can use all the help we can get for those people who function and serve in the constitutional conservative role of politics, trying to preserve the best of this nation. And it seems like a lot of people are awfully quiet, even those who would be on our side. And we've got a lot of races, even here in Helena, that we could flip. We really could change the court here, the way things look in Helena. But a lot of the big hitters in Montana politics, I guess, just really are not willing to step out and help the legislative candidates in Senate and House in the Helena Valley, and I'm sure that's true in other places throughout Montana. It's just like everybody's so focused on their individual race that it's really hard to build teams. And that's one of our goals in Restore Liberty, is to focus on teamwork, collaboration, working together. But I guess, the strength of people like us is we're very independent minded, but that's also our weaknesses. We never like to come together.
No, and I've often said that's one of the inherent fallacies of the patriot movement, is it's mostly run by alpha males, and that only so many alpha males can come together, and before there's some conflict, and you see that happens unfortunately a lot. And otherwise, well-intended people, they get personality conflicts, and like I said, they break off and they get different groups, and but I mean, I don't even know how you're ever going to stop that, Darin, because I mean, that these beta males are not going to be in leader. They're going to lead things. It's going to have to be the type A alpha male kind. So anyway, I don't know if that's a question there. I was just my observation on things. You can either agree or disagree. Anyway, what exactly are you going to be here tonight? You're going to be at the Flathead Liberty Coalition here in Kalispell, and that is, I believe, at 6 p.m. at the Eagles, right downtown. And for those of you that are in the Kalispell area, it's right around the corner from Norm's News. If you haven't been to Norm's News, you should probably go there and have a burger at least. I don't get paid for that. Right around the corner. And Darin, you're going to be there. You're going to be the guest, the featured speaker tonight. And can you just give us a brief overview of sort of the syllabus of what you're going to be covering?
Sure. Some of it's actually a little bit of what we just talked about here but basically it's rebuilding communities will rebuild a nation. And that's how we can stop focusing so much on DC, but focus on where we are, rebuild where we're at, and that success can trickle upwards. And we know it's going to take time, and it's going to take the kind of people that are willing to have the patience to let the strategy develop. And we know that's tough when we're looking at what we're looking at every single day right now and thinking that the problem is immediate. Well, it is, and there's no doubt about it. But if we get solely focused on the immediate and the things that we can't control, we're going to ignore the things that we can control. And so we've got to get involved and stop complaining about things. And maybe it's do research on the opposition. Maybe it's knock on doors. Maybe it's stuff envelopes or do fundraising help or phone calls. The time for complaining was over a long time ago. But if you're not involved now, risking things, whether it be your business, yourself, whatever that may be, this is a time for people to assume risks in what they're doing. I know I've given up a lot with what I'm doing, and I'm going to continue to do so because I think it's important. And I think if we all did something like that, wherever we're called to go, that we can take this country back and bring it where it's supposed to be. But it's going to take time. The people who have the strategic mindset or the willingness to be patient and let it develop.
So let's bring it let's bring it more locally here. What plan do you think that we need to put in place to be able to bring the out of control Supreme Court to heel? They just consistently overturn laws that have been put forth by the legislature and passed through both houses of the legislature, then signed by the governor. Those are two of the three co-equal branches, and then the third co-equal branch comes and wipes it all out. I mean, there's got to be some sort of a plan to stop that, Darin, because otherwise, and I have a lot of legislative friends, but it's basically an exercise in futility. All the stuff in Helena and all the legislative sessions and all the meetings and committees and everything like that. And they just go overturn it. I mean, it's bizarre, man. And that's not even a word. That frustrates me, Darin.
Well, the simple answer to that is all hands on deck for the Brown Rice ticket. Jim Brown, Jim Rice, and every single person needs to be out there supporting them, because if Ingrid Gustafson is going to be in the Supreme Court, then we've gained nothing. She doesn't care about the Constitution. She's a weaponized person who is trying to use her seat, along with many people on the Supreme Court, to control Montana from the almighty black robe position at that court. And so if we can't get the right people on the Supreme Court, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing. Now, I'm with you to a point. It's like, okay, you overturn this law. By the way, you can't make this law, or you can't make it, so you can't overturn it in the first place. There's a point at which you have to risk just ignoring what the Supreme Court says. So this is not your role. This is not your job. Made this law, and it's within the boundaries of the Constitution, because it's got to go through the Attorney General's office. That's what they do to double check these laws. And so our Supreme Court is so far gone. Pretty much everything they say is almost of zero value at this point. So everybody in Kalispell, let's just say in the Flathead County, should be supporting Jim Brown and Jim Rice in every way they can, financially, phone calls, getting out the vote, whatever it takes, putting up signs. All of that should be done, because like you said, if the Supreme Court doesn't get fixed and it keeps going down this road that it's going on and has been going on for years, then they might as well just go ahead and say what they really want to say, which is, we are the only branch of government that matters in this state. You might as well just put the rest of it away.
We're just out of time, but I say you ignore them, and when they respond, say, send your army. That's what I think. All right, Darin, appreciate you being here today. I may or may not be able to see you when you come here tonight to Kalispell. I hope I do. But we do appreciate you being on here on Thursday. Darin Gaub, co-founder of Restore Liberty, restore-liberty.org, restore-liberty.org. Darin Gaub, thanks so much for joining us here today on Northwest Liberty News. We appreciate it, as always.
All right, thanks, Jim. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, buddy. Take care. Okay, folks, there goes Darin Gaub.